Hi, everyone. Welcome to Ad Age Remotely. I'm Janine Poggi, Assistant Managing Editor here at Ad Age. Thanks so much for joining us. Today, I'm joined by Ashish Prashar, Global Chief Marketing Officer at RGA. Prashar joined RGA in March, where he oversees worldwide marketing functions for the creative powerhouse. Hi, Ashish.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. Welcome to Ad Age Remotely.
It's a pleasure to be here. This is so exciting to talk to the industry.
So before we get started, for those of you who are watching at home, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them on our social channels and we will try to get to them during this conversation. So Ashish, I know you joined RGA in March, obviously not that long ago, though it feels like decades ago at this point. Can you talk a little bit about what brought you to the agency and what your initial priorities are in this role?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question because you're right. It does feel like an eternity already, which also means it's been good because you feel like you have a family. You've known them forever, but that's really it. It's the people. You know, they're the reason they joined RGA. There's a guy called Tom Morton, who is our Chief Strategy Officer. He reached out to me after the last election. We had a bond before this because he does work in justice as well. And, you know, I was already halfway in the door. You know, when you have a friend who you trust and believe in and you know, you think of his family, and he was like, okay, great, I want to join this place. But then I met the rest of the leadership and other peers, you know, I see Sean and other leaders, and we didn't really talk about work through the process. We really were talking about life, what was going on in the world, how interconnected those stories started to feel. And we got to know each other as people. And we spent hours just discussing what was going on with the election, what was, you know, how we felt about last year and the pandemic. And that's what drew me into RGA, you know, the people being people being who they are. Maybe that was a result of last year, you know, what we've all been through, all of us being separated and apart and sharing ways we probably might have not all done before. And that openness was transformative to the process, and why I actually joined was that.
So with all of that and sort of that conversation and sort of the human aspects of coming into RGA, what are your initial priorities? Like what are some of the things, you know, over the next couple of months that you're really focused on?
Yeah, I come from a political background. I'm a campaigner and a comms person by trade. And, you know, the beautiful thing about political comms, it is really about human beings. Right, you're trying to convince people to do things or vote for you or whatever it is. And you know, my priorities are to profile the RGA people. Right, they are everything we build and design and create is created by people, made for brands and businesses who arguably want to build relationships with people. And our marketing and communication strategy that I brought in is very political style, where you want to, you want to make someone feel at the end of this thing that they have a relationship with the brand or business that they're interacting with. And we want to tell the stories of the people building that stuff. People, you know, we have people doing, and I'm sure across all agencies, doing innovative work. And the work is a lot celebrated by our industry. Sometimes not all the people are like out there celebrated by our industry. And so, you know, it's very, they all have life experiences. They all have a story that brought them to where they are, that created them. That is expertise. That is knowledge. And you know, my goal really is to make sure that our people are out there talking as experts and creators and designers in the media space, in events, and everything else. Because you know, you've got to trust that those profiles you're building makes them want to stay part of our RGA family too. I think brand businesses and even agencies are reticent to do that because they scare people to leave because they have this profile and they're good somewhere else. But if you do that, I think you build like a relationship with your own people that's trusting.
And Ash, you're coming in a little bit glitchy. If you go ahead and you just shut off the camera for a second, we can maybe get that up and running so that we can have the conversation and you'll come in a little clearer. Great. So so talking of all of that, like what over the past year between the pandemic and the social justice movement, how do you think the ad world has changed and what do you hope to see moving forward?
Well, that's almost a loaded question. I feel like all businesses and brands have to change, and our world, right? So I think it's everyone's responsibility to get into the EDI work. You know, leaders like us, leaders across our industry, it's your job, right, to care about issues, right? But also care about all your people. I'm looking at all this stuff and the return to offices now and return to work, and it's like I'm seeing big companies who are seen as innovative walk back the whole, you can work remotely forever. It wasn't part of the pandemic, like letting people make their own choices, or like building it around individuals so they can feel happy and healthy and safe. And the social justice movement, I still think we've all got a lot of work to do. You know, I'm proud of the work that RGA are doing. I've come in and walked into something that is beautiful with our Make Change work that Jai runs here. But she, you know, she's made publishing items every quarter, which, as you know, we do. But we all know we have tons of work to do to make sure equity is seen throughout our industry right now. Right now, there's a saying from a lot of people I do work with, mentor in the community through work I do in the justice space in the community. They are some of the most creative minds I've ever met. And they often joke, because I work in this field, they're like, oh, your industry they make a killing off us, our ideas on the street. And when you look at trends and everything else, they're not wrong. But why are they not in there? Why are they not making money from that? Why are they not in our offices? Why are they not sitting in my job? You know, why are those individuals not the individuals being paid for the work that we are inspired by and create for brands?
I think did we lose you for a second?
Nope.
Oh, there you are. Okay, great. So yes, I mean, what are some of the things that you're hoping, you know, at RGA you can do to bring those voices into the conversations?
Yeah, I mean, RGA's got an amazing, you know, workplace commitment with Make Change. Our ideas get published, but I'm personally working with Jai on something special, which is our second chance hiring program, which is less of a program, but more we want to put it into with Make Change and recruiting from a diverse background of people. You know, our teams recognize that all people have potential and that we have to hire on what an applicant can bring to the company rather than what they've done. And, you know, we're collaborating with expert organizations and communities. Like in New York, we're collaborating with an Exodus transitional community based in Harlem to design really infrastructure and teach our recruitment, you know, to recruit and develop programs for formerly incarcerated brothers and sisters. It's not enough to meet numbers goals. We have a responsibility as individuals to use our privilege, whatever that might be, to advocate for people who are actively disenfranchised by society. We need to give formerly incarcerated people the space to thrive, the opportunity to create, and the tools to develop their potential. This isn't preferential treatment. That's also the other thing. This is equal treatment through the elimination of unnecessary barriers. Because right now, when people think, oh, this is just a small issue sometimes. When you think that 70 million people in America have a record, we are not tapping into the creative and design potential of our country. And our industry could play a massive role in bringing those people in and actually giving them a role in the creative process for the brands and businesses we work for.
Yeah, and I was hoping that we can talk a little bit about your experience having been incarcerated at a young age and how that has shaped your journey to becoming a C-suite leader. What have you taken away from that, and, you know, also applying for others coming up in the industry?
Right. So it's a weird one because you know, you said I started in March. March was also my 20th anniversary, what I call Freedom Day, of being free from prison. So this year feels like a really special year. Prison taught me. Look, I grew up in a middle class family. We weren't like particularly poor, but we weren't affluent. We were sitting right in the middle by definition. And a single event changed my life. And you know, at that time, it seemed like right now, when you look back, you think, oh, my parents got divorced. It was quite a bad divorce. Nevertheless, that led to the collapse of everything around me in that moment. And, you know, it sent me down a path of trying to find other people to lean on, right? I already had a group of friends and we became a lot closer. We found kinship because we shared loss. Now, some people lost family members through divorce or other things. Other people literally lost people. And we did senseless things together, like all kids. You know, boys will be boys, that horrible phrase. But, you know, we did stupid things that could have got us nicked or arrested many times. And as our exploits got bigger and more daring, we grew closer and closer until the day we got caught. You know, at 17, I was I was arrested, charged, and convicted for the crime of conspiracy to steal from a department store. And that event, you know, it was my first offense. It was, you know, it was theft, basically. I was sentenced to a year in a younger offenders institution for that. And we consider the injustices of our society. It was because basically all the co-conspirators, they call it, were brown and black. There's no other real reason for that type of sentence. And, you know, that moment was transformational in my life because, you know, there's no way of making this an easy story. I experienced, you know, prison wasn't designed to do anything but cause pain. I saw and experienced violence, assaults, verbal bashings, racially motivated bashings. You know, food was taken away from us. And the thing you learn in prison is to appreciate time, because it wasn't really designed to do anything else but to cause pain. You know, we have to value time in a way. Weirdly, this pandemic's kind of connected the dots on that. In a way, this pandemic has taught a lot of people, you know, value your life, value time, value everyone else's time, because you can lose it really quickly. Because what could have happened in prison to me is I could have lost my grandparents while I was locked up. I could have lost other people who I loved. And I feel like a lot of people have just tried to experience some similar. Nothing compares to prison. There's some similar stuff like that in the pandemic. And what prison did for me was, you know, make me get to a place where I knew that when I got out, I had to get far away as possible from that event, right? And I had privilege, right? I had an aunt on the outside who fought for me. And remember, this is the year 2000, 2001, right? There isn't justice, you know, reform movements. We're still tough on crime at this point, right? So, you know, she fought for me in a way that she wrote to the Justice Secretary so I could sit my exams in prison at the same time as my classmates on the outside. She fought the facility to make sure I had the materials I needed for those exams. She fought so I was out early, because she knew every day I was in prison there was more opportunity for bad things to happen to me. And on my release, her and my grandparents created a real safe space for me. It gave me agency, showed me I was loved and supported. And even though there were still so many potential obstacles in my path, you know, they provided me a space where I knew I was safe. That would be the best way to put it. And because of them, my life transformed. Because of my grandfather, I met a former Sun and News of the World editor by the name of Andy Coulson, back in the UK, and he literally threw me in front of him and said, this is a couple of years later, and he threw me in front of him and he said, oh, my grandson got released from prison, he wants to transform his life. And Andy, without batting an eyelid, just asked what I wanted to do with my life. He didn't ask what I did. I mean, look, he's one of the most well-connected editors in News Corp back then. I'm sure he probably found out, but he never asked. He just wanted to give me the space to thrive. And because of him, I got to work as a journalist at 21 years old. And it transformed my whole career.
And that led to your passion, of course, for social reform and prison justice reform. What are you working on now? How are you looking to the industry to be a part of that?
Yeah, it's really interesting because, you know, a lot of people think, oh, he must have been an abolitionist the day I left prison, right? They think, oh, he came out, wanted to revolution, like cause it now. I wasn't when I was released from prison. I wanted a normal life desperately. You know, I desperately wanted to just transform my life. Because I think, you know, people don't understand the stigma of it. You know, like back then, I know it's not valid right now in New York. Back then, you still had to tick the box about whether you have a criminal record or not. I know we still do background checks, but even in the application process, yeah, that wasn't everything. And actually, a lot of you tick no and don't realize it's on immigration forms, it's on housing forms, it's on everything, right? You actually are, you know, you're profiled in so many ways, right? And I wanted to run away from it. And I had a sponsor, you know, I had a journalist who took me through my career in politics, because he ended up being a director of comms for a political party, and I went with him all these steps. I went with him to be, you know, press secretary of the mayor of London. And all those years, I didn't talk about it. You know, I really didn't do it. I will be honest with everyone here. For 10 years, following my release, all I wanted to do was create what we call a normal life, right? And, you know, it wasn't, my abolition came later. I basically, you know, I went to Sierra Leone with a British politician. And, you know, this is almost like 8-9 years after the civil war in Sierra Leone. And, you know, I went there to do a government project. And, you know, I got to witness something called reconciliation councils. And this is a story I recently shared actually with my LGA colleagues. I saw something that transformed my life for the second time in my life. I saw a young man who was a child when he was in the Civil War, who was a child soldier when he was in the Civil War, go up for his Reconciliation Council meeting and stand in front of a couple. This couple, he had executed their children during the Civil War. Now, a lot of people don't know what child soldiers are drugged up, influenced, taken away from their families and put into war. So, he could barely remember some of the stuff that he did. And the parents had the right to judge him and make amends. The mother adopted him. She said our country had lost too much from what's happened over the last generation. And it's one of the most emotional experiences I've ever connected with. And I knew at that day that our system, I always knew it was broken, I always knew it was racist, but I knew I wanted to do something about it. See, we call ourselves civilized, and I'm watching this parent who've lost everything, who've lost their family, to the very person they're standing in front of right now, and their solution is to salvage the rest of their society, and we think we're civilized. We lock up our children. I was a child, I was 17. There are younger people than me in prison. And we don't ask the right question. We judge our children, we judge people. We don't ask how they got there in the first place. I knew from that experience that we needed to abolish our criminal legal system. And mass incarceration to me is a symbol, it's the worst symbol of capitalism. It's a legacy of colonialism. And that's all it is. And we need to care a lot more about each other. No one should be locked up. No child should be locked up. No one. And while my transformation did begin in prison, you could say it was a good thing for me. And I've always argued that my experience was very unique. And my work today, when I came back from Sierra Leone for the last decade of my life, has been dedicated to abolishing the justice system, right? And I'm also a pragmatist. I've worked inside politics. I know we have to chip away at it to get rid of it, because no one in the system right now wants to end what either they've made a lot of money from, or they believe is actually just. They think this system works, but I work to hire formerly incarcerated people across the city, across everywhere. I worked in London first. We have second chance hiring programs. We have trainings and mentorships programs. I work on bills with my partners in the community to something more recently called Clean Slate, where we're trying to get rid of the records of 2.3 million New Yorkers. It's insane. That's so much of our population in New York have a record and now ostracized from jobs like we are sitting in right now because they have a record. They can't even get the first step of the ladder. How do they get to here? I work on bills called Less is More because, and I'm going to give a shout out to an agency that's not mine. It's Droga. They recently did a campaign around getting rid of parole and technical violations with Reform, which is a amazing justice reform organization. And they basically showed all the daily things that you and me do in life that can get someone busted back to jail. Like being 2 minutes late to an appointment. We're 5 minutes late to Zooms and we don't bat an eyelid and it's expected. Someone can be 2 minutes late to an appointment after possibly going for a job interview. The job interview overran, but his PO doesn't care, so they send him right back to jail. That's the system we live in right now, and that's the system we're fighting to undo every day in our society. And that system was built to punish and keep people in poverty, so there is high recidivism. So we do keep people at a certain tier in life and keep them down.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'd love to continue the conversation with asking, why does the ad world and companies and brands need to prioritize this? Why is this something, you mentioned Droga 5 and the work that they did, and why do other agencies, why do other brands need to be a part of this?
Look, we also help create it. We are, I think, one of the most powerful industries in the world. We might not be per capita when you think about what Apple make and what Google make, and in terms of sheer money, but sheer influence. We are one of the most powerful industries in in the world. We tell stories. We reflect society. Like, we reflect their values. And all I would say is that, you know, if you don't care about it, you don't care about people of color. It's deliberately targeted at us, like, especially in the United States. Let's just take the US. Let's not make this super global. Um, our industry worked on the war on drugs messaging. That was deliberately targeted to, attack black and brown people in America. Our industry does campaigns for the police. Like, can you work on that, knowing that those very police officers might shoot your colleague or their family member and not be charged? Our industry can change the narrative of all this. We can choose to tell different stories. We can choose not to make cops heroes. I'm tired of the debate that, our brand or business services black people, but it also services the police. One is a profession, one is a community. You don't serve both. You serve the community. You don't serve the police. They can choose to not be in that job. And our industry has helped brand and build reputations and communications around these individuals, around these institutions of oppression. And we can choose not to do that. We can choose to tell the stories of communities, of the things that have been going on, of the, of people and what they've been suffering. We can choose to tell stories of what the police really do. And we can choose to tell stories of our brothers and sisters who work alongside us rather than actually helping an institution that actively oppresses them. What I think our industry could do is create new stories. We can also end the business of mass incarceration by stopping to agree. We can boycott working with them. We don't have to work with or design technology for or build campaigns for the police departments across America, or Homeland Security, or ICE, if you care about immigration. We don't have to do that work. Let them do it themselves. We don't have to do that. We can actually start doing campaigns to call out their, I'm going to say it, call out their shit. Like, I don't care. Like, I was thinking about saying that, not. But we can build campaigns to call out all the injustices. That we can build campaigns to call out injustices taking place in prisons. Like, people are raped, tortured, and murdered in prisons. And our media is not doing it, so we can do it. We should tell the stories of the women being released, who are not being released, during this pandemic in Rikers, who've suffered sexual harassment and assault daily by guards. Do we choose to do that? Does it pay enough? Probably not. We could hire my formerly incarcerated brothers and sisters. They are creative, they are amazing, talented people, and we can help design a society, that where the truth is being seen. We have so powerful, and we have so much say over what the world sees. We can actually have a mass impact on mass incarceration in America.
Ashish, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you being here, and would love to, talk again and see what develops and see what you bring to this new role. So thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you to all of you watching. And as always, thank you to our Ad Age crew, Alfred Mascaroni, Anna Sakula, Max Sternlicht, and Ariel Breck for making this live stream happen. Thank you.